something has to happen in your life where you just say, I cannot do this again for another minute. And for me, with being married and living that life and all that, it got to the point where I said to myself, I don't care if I lose every friend and I live under a bridge by myself and not a nickel in my pocket. I know my kids will still love me, and the people who love me, the important people will still love me. I have to make a change. And it's the most freeing, wonderful feeling ever. And then you start to realize a lot of the things that you were anxious about and you worried about, they're just false expectations appearing real, fear.
Welcome to And Then I Did This. Prepare to be inspired as we celebrate the unique journeys of individuals who've had the courage to break free and live life on their own terms. Their lives prove that you truly can be free to live your best and most authentic life. Let's get to it. Welcome to the show. I have a special guest today, Jeff Kagan. Jeff has worked on Wall Street for 30 years in investment banking and institutional sales and trading, often making a lot of money, but wasn't always feeling fulfilled and felt a bit empty and unhappy. So a year ago, Jeff put his desire to do something financially and spiritually rewarding out to the universe, and he was guided to J-Galt, a company dedicated to helping others. He now shows entrepreneurs and business owners how to eliminate personal guarantees and access capital at better rates and terms using their company's EIN. And I know there are a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show, and your insight is going to be so helpful and informative for people. So let's start at the beginning. So how did you get into finance? And welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you. So how did I get into finance? Well, I actually wanted to become a teacher when I was graduating college. And my dad, who has always been kind of success-oriented and really was very instrumental in pushing me both academically and then financially in my life, essentially said to me that I couldn't become a teacher and that I had to do something where I was going to be able to earn a really good living. So that was kind of the catalyst. I originally worked for 2 years selling shipping equipment for Pitney Bowes after college. And then, I knew I needed to make some sort of leap. And, he was pushing me to Wall Street. And it was really a lot of parental influence and guidance, or steering, I should say. I wouldn't necessarily say guidance, but steering in terms of producing their successful son. So that was how that happened.
It's kind of interesting because I remember wanting to be a therapist when I was in school, and people said to me while I was in school, oh, everybody's a therapist. And so then I looked at what's close to that. Oh, consumer behavior. Oh, advertising. So I hear you. So the journey to Wall Street, did you grow up in New York and then you went that path, or how did you land on Wall Street?
And so it's weird. I grew up outside of New York and New Jersey. My father never worked in financial services. He had his own business and he sold it. He became a lawyer. I guess, living in that part of the country, maybe kind of like living where you do in Los Angeles, everyone works in the movie industry. Well, if you work in and around, a lot of people work in financial services. And we had a lot of family friends in and around the business. And it was a bit of a natural segue for me to go there.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what you're doing now with helping entrepreneurs understand how to fund themselves, basically. But we'll talk about that because that's really interesting.
Well, it's interesting in that I work for a company that 4 years ago, didn't even exist. And now we have over 44,000 clients. And we're growing live like 500 to 600% per year.
Wow.
Because we have essentially unlocked a certain area of the marketplace that was previously unavailable to the small business owner. The reason that we exist is because when everyone turns 18 in this country, the 4 rating agencies, TransUnion, Experian, Expedia, and Bradstreet, are legally required to track everything we do financially, positively, negatively. So you develop a FICO score.
Right.
Your Social Security number. And that's you get credit cards and you can borrow money and lease a car and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get your life started. Well, for companies or LLCs, that law does not exist.
Mm.
Because no one is required to. I think about 94% of all lenders and vendors in this country do not report any positive payment experience from an LLC to any of the four rating agencies.
Wow.
So most companies that are under 40 million a year in revenues have no history of any positive payment experience. So it's if you're a business owner and you went into the bank and said, hey, I want a line of credit for a couple $1 million and I don't want to personally guarantee it. I want to put it on my EIN, my business.
Mm-hmm.
Typically they'd get a reaction like a 15-year-old walked into a bank, tried to get a mortgage. They would just laugh. The banker would laugh. They'd be like, I can't, there's no history of you existing or your business making any payments. And, credit is based upon a person or an entity's ability to pay their bills on time in full.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Right.
So doing that, as a person, as a company, you build credit. So recognizing that this hole existed in the marketplace, we put together a very intentional process where we take our clients through what's typically a 3 to 12 month process where we build credit intentionally on their EIN by paying their bills through lenders and vendors that we know report to the four agencies.
Right.
And we build a corporate credit score there where our clients are then able to borrow money on their EIN. And, kind of the magic in what we do is that we build the corporate credit score up to a certain level, which is 80. So your FICO is 350 to 850. Corporate or EIN credit is 0 to 100. Most companies have like a 20 or 30. It's a minimum number where it doesn't mean anything. Once you get above 80, that's when the magic starts happening. You can start borrowing. So we essentially guarantee that we will build our clients' corporate credit scores or EIN credit scores to 80 or above at all four agencies within 12 months.
Wow.
And
that's
then,
impressive.
Yeah. And then what we're able to do is we have another side of our business where we're a loan broker and we represent about 90 different lending institutions. So from money center banks to regional banks, credit unions, even pools of money from private equity firms who they're all dying to work with our client base of 44,000 because they have great credit.
Right. Absolutely.
So the client will go through the process, they'll develop this score, and they'll say, I need a line of credit for X amount of money. We know everything about them. Then we walk over to the other side, and we have these 90 lenders, and we will only work with these lenders if they tell us what their lending requirements are. And they keep up to date on them. Right. So it's just as simple as making a match. Line will say, I need a line of credit for X amount of money. We'll find 4 lenders that match up with them. 4 or 5 typically get them offers. It's as easy as leasing a car. There's very little anxiety for the business owner. And then they're able to borrow that money on their EIN, not personally guaranteed, use that money to pay off personal guarantees, things they personally guaranteed, to deal with cash flow shortages, to buy out partners, to do equipment financing, to scale, whatever it is you need the money for. But and the money is typically borrowed at the best rates and terms.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's rewind a little bit because I know everyone listening probably doesn't know what an EIN is. You want to walk through that? Yeah.
Sure. So the EIN is very simply, it's a social security number of your company. So it's basically your company's tax ID number, just like your social is basically your tax ID number for you as a person.
It's interesting is because I've started a few startups and been part of a few startups and then have been able to guide others because I do help people who are starting and getting out of their corporate 9-to-5 churn and burn, that an EIN number is free and you can just get it online. You can request it and it is given like almost immediately. You just fill out the form and it's that easy. So I encourage anyone who does have an LLC or anything that is an entity where they're running any kind of a side hustle business, get one because it's smart to do it and not have it tied to your personal social security number.
Yeah. So the reason to have your own company and to get an LLC and to do things like our program is you want to create clear cleavage between you as a person and your business. There
Mm-hmm.
has to be a very distinct advantage. And you want to keep your personal assets as completely separate from the obligations of your company. Ultimately, you want your company working for you, not vice versa. And you do not want any unnecessary risk from the company to flow over and spill into your personal life. And that's a really, really big mistake most entrepreneurs or, solo business owners make, in that
Right.
they, everything is mixed together. And then, the next thing, the business gets sued, and, God forbid you lose the lawsuit. And then, the lawsuit is bigger than the assets of the company, and start coming after your house and your kid's college fund and so on and so forth. And that's the
Right.
lesson. We want this business to protect itself, protect us, and to be its own standing entity.
I'm going to go back to your journey, like 30 years on Wall Street. That's a commitment. And to
Yeah.
make a pivot into something that is more meaningful, what were the signs that you knew, I need to make a change? I need to do something different.
Well, there was a lot of things that needed to change in my life. My marriage had run its course. I was married for 27 years. And then unfortunately ran its course. And there were just a number of changes I needed to make. I was very unhappy. I was just in a bad spot. And it took a lot of, a lot of introspection. I have a spiritual coach I work with, a therapist, and just really kind of finding out about myself, what's important to me. And I, had this cathartic moment where I realized I was kind of done making rich guys richer.
Right.
And then getting, harassed by them for it.
It's a light bulb moment, right?
Yeah, it really is. It really is a light bulb moment. I was just like, I can't do this for another day. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew it couldn't be that anymore.
Sounds like we had a similar trajectory. I was just an ad agency down in Times Square area, and here in Wall Street.
Yeah. So we were not that far from each other. And it was a soulless existence. And I realized I did it after 5 to 7 years, and started building a career. It was completely a slave to the paycheck, and it paid very well. And it afforded a very, very nice lifestyle in a very expensive town, and sent my kids to college and grad school and camp. And, they got cars when they turned 17 and all that stuff. And, all the trappings of that, but, none of it really leaves you very fulfilled as an individual. And you learn that. And, everybody kind of goes through this process. Some people learn it much earlier in life than others, and those are really lucky ones. Unfortunately for me, I learned it in my 50s, but I'm glad I learned it.
Yes.
I learned it in my 50s. There are plenty of people who never learned that lesson, and they're still, chasing
an illusion.
Into their 80s. Like, what's the point? So, I really wanted to do something that was going to put money in my pocket, but also be spiritually fulfilling. And this dropped into my lap out of the sky.
Yeah. Yeah. The universe and the moon and the stars aligned. Yeah. Because when you're doing something that you feel is more in alignment with your core values, then everything lines up.
There are times I'm on the phone with people and I feel like I would do this job for free.
Wow. That is the true test.
Yeah, I would do this for free. Like, I'll get on the phone sometimes with a person. I'll be like, I know that I'm not going to make anything from this call. And that's fine. Because also, I was always, a salesman on a certain level. You find pain, you solve for the pain, you provide evidence of ROI, you close.
Right.
Now, that's part of it, but it's also education. Most people, most small business owners do not know about EIN credit and corporate credit, and being able to borrow money on your company's social, not your own, and not having to personally guarantee it. They don't know about it. And then once they learn about it and realize how powerful a tool it is, it really can change their lives as well. And
absolutely,
I tell people all the time, I get calls from business owners. I've only been doing this for a year and change. I get calls from business owners. Thank you. You saved my business. You saved my marriage. I sleep at night. And I'll tell you something, aside from a hug from my daughters, that's the best thing in the world.
Right. I can only imagine. Yeah, because there's that saying, if you don't have a plan for your life, someone else will. So we're either working for someone else to make them wealthy or, company, or doing work that's fulfilling and rewarding and getting a financial exchange, obviously, for that. But you're helping people in a much deeper way than just helping build their wealth.
Yeah, I'm basically showing them how to do what they love to do in the best possible manner with the least
Right.
possible risk.
What were some of the barriers, I guess, and fears that you faced with stepping out from where you were? Because you said you weren't really sure what you were going to do. You just knew you couldn't do that anymore. What were some of those? And then how did you overcome them to keep going and stay true to your soul and your heart?
Yeah, I suffer from anxiety, and I have my whole life. And candidly, I probably wanted to get divorced about 15 years before I did. But I was afraid to, because I was afraid to lose my children and my friends and my life and my money and everything like that.
Right.
And ultimately, for anybody making a massive change, you have to kind of bottom out. You have to, whatever that looks like, something has to happen in your life where you just say, I cannot do this again for another minute.
Right.
So, and for me, when, with being married and living that life and all that, it got to the point where I said to myself, I don't care if I lose every friend and I live under a bridge by myself and not a nickel in my pocket. I know my kids will still love me, and the people who love me, the important people, will still love me. I have to make a change. And it's the most freeing, wonderful feeling ever. And then you start to realize a lot of the things that you were anxious about and you worried about, they're just false expectations appearing real, fear.
Right.
That's all it all was, and it really bottomed out. And then there's everything, in particular the beginning for me, because I was always a W-2 employee for 30 years. When's my next paycheck going to come? How am I going to do this? How you start challenging yourself, and you start having little wins here and there, and you start developing a little bit of a business muscle for this, and you start feeling better about yourself and better. It starts to grow. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm doing business now. I've created a business out of nowhere.
Right.
Making a lot of money now, which is great. And this business didn't exist a year ago.
Yeah.
So the feelings you get, the satisfaction you get from doing something like this out of thin air for yourself, and the creativity that it engenders and all of that, is just, there's very few experiences in your life that you'd be able to get, which will make you feel as good as that.
Yes.
Aside from raising my children, this is the best thing I've ever done.
Oh, so good. I know. And when you look at what's happening in the market, I just heard about an employee at Tesla yesterday. They were in the San Francisco Bay Area, had an hour and a half commute to work, had worked for the company for 5 years, started in some kind of, like lower level position, worked their way up. They were making $120,000 a year. And because their commute was so long, about a year ago, they had decided to not do that commute every day. So they would actually sleep in the parking lot in their Tesla at the company, shower in the company's shower. And just last week, on their way to work, got an email that they didn't need to come in, that their role had been eliminated. This is a guy, now he had bought fairly big house and worked for the company for 5 years, thinking probably that he was going to stay there, who knows, till his version or vision of what retirement looks like. And they let him go. He called his supervisor, I think, and couldn't get a hold of them, got to the office, went to the turnstile where he's showing their badge, and they literally took his company badge away and said, you're no longer part of the company, so you can't come inside. There are so many dimensions in the world right now that are intersecting the illusion of get your 401k, work until, retirement. A lot of people who were in retirement are coming out of retirement. People who thought they had jobs are getting either Zoom call announcements in mass, we're laying you all off, your position is eliminated as of today, or they're getting emails like that guy. So now his plan is he's selling his house and he's planning to live out of his car for the next 5 years and save as much money as he can to not ever have to go through that kind of experience again. Thinking he's going to invest in the stock market, which probably not, that's, personal opinion, probably not the best thing to be doing right now with the way the market's, just the volatility there. But I just think the illusion, when I started in the phone company. My brother had worked with the Bell system, and he retired there. That was my vision. And then 15 years into it, I realized if I don't get out of this, I'm going to be siloed in telecom. So I got out. I was like the VP of marketing for the small business division. So I'd had like great training. I planned 6 years before I made the exit because I had single mom, 2 young daughters, mortgage payment. So for anybody listening, you need to have a little bit of a plan. Like what do you think you want to do? You obviously had all the background and experience that you had. So you knew worst case, you could go back, but you just didn't want to do Wall Street anymore, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I felt like I realized I'd sold my soul to corporate America. And I'd given away my personal power and given that to someone else. And I was at their whim every day, no matter what. And yeah, I was laid off from a job twice.
Right.
You know, 2008 happened. I lost my job. Things like that happen. And when you really commit yourself and you're working 60, 70 hours for a company, and then they hit you to the curb like you're a piece of trash, it's a really, really emotionally, that's a hard pill to swallow. It's really hard to come to grips with that. And I think that was also something, those 2 experiences really led me to believe I got to do something for myself.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, you don't have to worry that, am I working enough? Am I doing enough? You know for yourself. Am I doing enough for myself? And
yes.
And that's what matters. And I don't worry about getting fired. I know what I need to do to make money. I do it. And that's that. I do as much as I want or as little as I want, but it's my business. It's my thing. And it's great. It's great.
The freedom. Yeah. The freedom that comes along with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to go to meetings if I don't want to.
Once you get out, you realize how uncomfortable, and it really wasn't even a comfort zone. At the end, it's like people get in their comfort zone. So at this point, looking back with very clear eyes and clear lens, the fact that people have to ask for PTO, personal time off, or work to earn enough to be able to get a week or 2 weeks. When you're here this many years, we'll give you 2 weeks and then you'll get 3 weeks. And I think I'd worked my way up to like 4 weeks vacation. And then I didn't take it because it was always that prove that you're doing above and beyond. And just that whole game. It's the corporate game, I call it.
Exactly. Everyone should get a minimum 4 weeks off and then take it. And, some people do have that and they never take it because then you're slacker. And it's like, oh, you can't be seen as a slacker. You have to be a hard worker for the company that doesn't really care much for you at all. Does not care. So, you're going to slave away. And if and when it's time comes, you're gone.
Well, one, your company is not your family. Even though they try to do things to make like, oh, we're our work family. We're all one, working together for the good, the common good. And the other one was there was a woman an employee who had passed away. And as they were clearing out her office, someone overheard them talking about posting the job opening for the position. Like, well, they were cleaning, which is like, if that isn't cold, I don't know what is. The
body's not even cold yet. They're pulling the body off the crime scene and they're looking for something to replace it.
Exactly.
It's true. It's ruthless. It's heartless. Well, the most successful companies still in this day really care about their employees, and it's just like life. The only things that matter are your friends and your family.
Right. And absolutely.
The company is just a consequence to the people working there. If you don't hire good people and you don't treat them well and you don't treasure them for who they are, you lose them.
I know there definitely are people who are listening to this that are still, I know we've had a lot of realism about what the corporate world and what a job really is. You are kind of beholden to that entity that's paying you. And there's no guarantee. Like employees give 2 weeks notice. Employers are sending text messages, Zoom calls, or emailing and letting people know. And there's no notice. It's like, that's it. What would you say to people who are on the fence, unsure, thinking about it, but aren't sure whether they should or not? What advice would you give them?
Well, I would say if you're going to go out on your own, first of all, make sure you have a good idea and you have a good plan of action. because no matter what the plan is, it's going to get derailed and you're going to change it 50 times. But as long as you have that foundation from which to operate from, that will alleviate a lot of the anxiety and fear going into it. And you really can focus on what you're doing and stick to that goal.
Yes.
And you can always get a job. You can always get a job in corporate America. But if you have the idea and you have some money, don't do it if you don't have money in the bank also.
Right.
But if you have money and you realize like I can go 3 or 6 months without making a paycheck, I can still eat and I can develop this thing, then you should absolutely do it. And better yet, if you can develop it while you're working for your too, and then ultimately jump out when it's time, that's great as well. But the last thing that anyone should do is, my grandpa used to always have this expression, there's no dress rehearsals. And that was kind of like what I got to when, my marriage had run its course and I was done working in corporate America. You don't get another shot. So you've got to do what you want to do and take off the training wheels and just jump into the water. Yeah, it's cold and it's scary, but there's no sharks and no one's going to harm you. And you'll get used to it being cold, and then you're actually going to enjoy it. And then you're going to be really proud of yourself that you were able to jump into the water and swim in there with the big boys.
Right. And I would say even just the economy and the cost of things, even if somebody doesn't have 6 months in the bank, I think even if they've got at least 3 months, and if you've got something you've started on the side and you've got some money coming in, when people get that deadline of this is it, then our creative juices start flowing and people will do the things that we procrastinate. I always say that there's no place called someday someday I'll start the business. Someday I'm going to start the site. Someday so just do it. Just put a plan. Yeah. I wrote the business startup blueprint because I'd been part of so many startups, and it has all like the basics of here are the things you're going to have to think about. It doesn't tell you here's how you do each of them, but it gives you at least their roadmap to follow. So I'll link that, below in the show notes. But your insight and just inspiration of doing it. And I know it had been like a few months since, we had spoken, and I can see the change in you even now with just your confidence and just happiness, and all of that is just so awesome to see.
Yeah, no, I love what I do. My parents have noticed, two quick asides. My parents have noticed that it's the first time in my life I've ever been passionate about what I do. And then there's a person who I knew in New Jersey who lived in my building in New Jersey when I was still on the street. And they also own a place down here in Florida in the same development where my dad lives down here. And I ran into them and I said hello, and we're talking. And then he ran into my father the next day. And he goes, "Are you Jeff's dad?" And he said, "Yeah." And they said, "Jeff looks like a different person."
Wow. Isn't that telling?
I didn't try, but I lost 20 something pounds. I'm just happy.
That's amazing.
My life. It's weird. I'm a single guy. I had a great date last night. I had a great day at work yesterday, and I was driving home and I'm like, am I allowed to be this happy? Is this legal? And I don't want anyone to know because this is too good to be true. I was like, holy crap, I feel really, really good.
That's
really
amazing.
Good. I haven't been able to say that about myself in decades.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Life can be this good.
Right. And I think because we get lulled into that, go to school, get a good job, like work your way up, save for retirement. I can't think of one person that hasn't felt, oh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I would have done that. And it's like, it's never too late. You can shift course at any time, right?
Yeah. Don't be paralyzed by your fears. And that is truly living.
Absolutely.
You just got to see your fears and deal with them and overcome them. And nothing will make you feel better about yourself, and nothing will open up your life to joy and happiness and contentment than doing that. Because most of us are really saddled and somewhat paralyzed by our fears. Figure out a way to overcome it and do it. And it's life-changing.
When you step out, the universe will rise up to meet you. You step out in faith, the universe will rise up to meet you. So on that note, yes, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. I love what you're doing. It's so needed. And I love that you love what you're doing because that makes all the difference in the outcome.
It does. I really love what I do. And I'd love to be able to help anybody else or talk to them about, how I did it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks so much, Jeff.
All right. Thanks, Lorraine.
And that's a wrap on another episode of And Then I Did This, celebrating the lives of those who've walked away from the beaten path to pursue work and a life that nourishes their soul. If you're feeling inspired and ready to explore your own path to freedom, check out youcanbefree.life, where you'll find resources and support to help you break free and live life on your own terms. See you next time.